Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Naomi Reilly, and I'm with the Early Math Project. Stuart Murphy will be joining us shortly, and we are thrilled he's part of our forum today. As you may know, Stuart is a prolific children's author. Many of his titles center on early math. Stuart will be sharing his 80th and latest book, Show and Tell, Great Graphs and Smart Charts, an introduction to infographics. We'd also like to acknowledge Stuart's generosity. He has donated 75 copies of Show and Tell that will be sent to lucky forum attendees. We're excited that Stuart is sharing graphing ideas today and would like to invite you to share what you are doing in your own classrooms and with your own children related to graphing. We'll talk about this more in a little while. As you listen to Stuart, we'd like to encourage you to think about how the graphs he talks about might be tailored for the children you interact with. Graphing is a very cognitively rich activity. It involves collecting and organizing data, counting and making sense of data and trends, all of which can help people make decisions, problem solve, and reach conclusions. A well-organized graph is a great, simple visual tool for understanding data.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Pfister with the California Early Math Project. We've asked Elizabeth Gamino, Tracy Doverspike, and John Dweck to join us today to talk about what's important to consider when graphing with children. Elizabeth Gamino is an intervention specialist for the Selma Unified School District. Elizabeth, what do you think is important to consider when graphing with children?
Okay, so some of my ideas around graphing with young children is it needs to be authentic. And so I like to begin with things that are relevant to them, such as what are their favorite colors, favorite animals, favorite sports, number of people in the family. And what I have found through doing this is that it gives me an opportunity to learn about my children and their communities, but it also gives me an opportunity to see what's important to them. So some ways that I've gone about graphing with kiddos is collecting the data either through Venn diagrams, yes/no charts, marbles in a jar, balance beams, linker cubes, inside outside circles, and taking that information and then having my students help me with the organization. We start to compare numbers, quantities, and it's a nice way for students to interact with numbers differently than they have in the past. Again, it helps with the classification, helping students sort, helping with one-to-one correspondence, comparing, and then analyzing the data. And I have just found that graphing for me has been such a worthwhile experience for my kiddos that I actually used to have a graphing question every day. And then my kiddos were able to tell me some graphing stories based on what they were noticing and analyzing.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Tracy Doverspike teaches kindergarten in the Alvord Unified School District. Tracy, what do you think is important to consider when graphing with children?
Hi, I'm Tracy Doverspike, and I'm a National Board kindergarten teacher in the Alvord Unified School District. I've been a teacher for 30 years, and I love doing graphing with my kindergartners. It's something that can easily be tangible for them. They love comparing and looking at different things, especially when you pull content that it pertains to them. They love looking at their names. They love looking at the colors of their shoes, buttons or no buttons on their clothes. What I love about graphing, particularly in this age group in kindergarten, is that they are natural graphers. They love comparing groups and building graphs. We do graphs in all different ways in our classroom. We do it by, one way is our favorite apples. You know, what's in our lunch that we like to eat today. So it can just be any conversation. It's so easy to have with them. And we build big visuals in our classroom. Just this week, we're talking about spiders. And so we made a giant spider and they got to graph who likes spiders and who doesn't. And now we're taking surveys on the playground to get other people's thoughts. And we're graphing that information for data collection and sorting it. And particularly with kindergartners, It's to teach them how to compare and look at information and not, oh, that side won and that side lost, but to build in some really great math vocabulary and to get them to analyze and really look at the data that they've been collecting. And even 5-year-olds love looking at numbers and comparing things. We had our teddy bear picnic and we sorted out all of our stuffed animals, and the math language that came out of that experience building a giant graph on our carpet was phenomenal. We had more groundhogs than we had teddy bears, and then we had more special creatures like unicorns and fantasy creatures than we did wild animals. So you just never know where your conversation is going to go with them and what they notice and wonder. So graphing and tallying and doing all of those things with kindergartners is a valuable use of your time.
Thank you, Tracy. John Dweck is a content coordinator for early care and education for the Office of the Fresno County Superintendent of Schools. John, what do you think is important to consider when graphing with children?
Hi, my name is John Dweck, and I work at the Office of the Superintendent of Schools in Fresno County. I'm ready to talk quickly about the importance of graphing for primary preschool students. It's such a great thing to do with your students, asking about favorite colors, favorite animals, favorite pets, things in their lives that you can record and keep track of. It's great for one-on-one correspondence. It's important for counting. It's good for classifying and sorting. We should always be graphing with our students. Data science is becoming such an important topic that we're discussing at all the grade levels. And as our students progress into upper elementary, middle school, and beyond, we want to make sure that they're able to collect and consider data, that they're able to analyze that data, but also interpret and communicate what that means, but also what it doesn't mean. So enjoy this presentation by Stuart Murphy. It should be a great one.
We'd like to know what you think is important when graphing with young children too. The Early Math Project invites all teachers and parents of children from preschool to 3rd grade to share their graphing ideas. We'd like to share your ideas on the Early Math Project website and social media. This slide has some ideas of what you might send us. We'd love to have examples of the data your children have enjoyed collecting and displaying. We'd like to see the ways that children display data that do and don't involve pencil and paper. You might share tally sheets, bar graphs, pie charts, pictographs, or original graphing games and activities. We're interested in seeing how children collect data to solve problems and make decisions. Show us how you support counting and one-to-one correspondence with graphing. We'd like to know how you use the Early Math Project book guide and activity for Stuart's new book. If you've modified the Early Math Project graphing games for your own home or classroom, please share what you did. We're interested in all of your graphing suggestions and ideas. You can send pictures, videos, original games, or suggestions to earlymathca@gmail.com. If the materials you share include pictures or images of people, please fill out and return a photo release form with your submission. The photo release form is attached to the materials for this session. If the Early Math Project shares your ideas through social media or the Early Math Project website, we will credit you and send you a thank you copy of Stuart's new book, Show and Tell, Great Graphs and Smart Charts. Before Stuart joins us, one final thing. The Early Math Project team created a book guide and 2 activities to accompany Show and Tell. They are part of the materials for this presentation and can be found with materials for many other books at www.earlymathca.org. And now, here's Stuart.
Hi, my name is Stuart J. Murphy. I'm the author of the Math Start series and the ICI Learn series. And I'm here with you today to talk about a brand new book that's just been published. It's called Show and Tell. I have a copy of it right here. It's about great graphs and smart charts. It's really an introduction to the wonderful world of infographics. Infographics are all about how we collect data and how we make it dynamic so that other people can enjoy it and understand it. This is an interview process that we're going through today, and my interviewer is Lisa Strawbridge, and my videographer is Nancy Kolenko.
That sounds great, Stuart, but before talking about Show and Tell, could you give us some information about your background?
Lisa, that's a good idea. And so I've made a little list of some of the things I've worked on to share with you. And that information is right here. My background is in the field of visual learning, how children learn from visual stimuli like charts and graphs and diagrams, the things we're talking about today, as well as illustrations and any form of visual information giving. And it's really important for kids to understand more about that. I went to the Rhode Island School of Design, and that's where I started my career in my interest in visual learning. And I've applied it to a number of different books. One is a series of books that's published by Savas Learning, and it's called Envision Mathematics. It's a full mathematics curriculum, and it is something that many of you have used in your schools, and I'm the visual learning author on that particular series. I'm also part of the authorship team of a brand new pre-K curriculum, also published by Savas, and it's called 3 Cheers for Pre-K. Interestingly, 3 Cheers for Pre-K has a very robust math and math literature component to it, so it very much fits with the topics that we're going to be talking about during this interview. My individual books are the Math Start series, which I already mentioned in the introduction, and Math Start has a total of 63 books across 3 levels, running from pre-K up to grade 4. And the 63 books all cover mathematical concepts within the context of a story. My other series is called I See, I Learn, and I See, I Learn is a series of books that cover very important social, emotional, health and safety, and cognitive skills. So now if you've been paying attention, you know that I've got a 63 book series, and I've got a 16 book series, which is a total of 79 books. And now my brand new book, listed at the bottom, is called Show and Tell, and that is my 80th book. I'm very excited about it.
After all of that, what made you want to write a book about charts and graphs?
Well, you know, charts and graphs and understanding data has become really an important part of our language. It's how we communicate information, particularly complicated information, to other people. And so I thought it was important to develop something that gave young children foundational skills necessary, not only to be able to understand them, kind of the take, but also the give, how to draw them, how to make them, and how to present information to other people. And so I think that is a really important area to provide materials on, things that kids can get excited about, and that's what started me writing the book. And what I've done in the book, I showed you a little bit of it. I have in fact introduced a number of things right in the first part of the book about the book, and so you can see the half-title page, which includes the 2 kids who are going to be helping you through this book as you read and enjoy it. And then there's the title page, which has all the information about the book itself, and lists, of course, the illustrator, Teresa Benlon, who's done a wonderful, wonderful job. She comes from Madrid, Spain, and these 2 kids are beginning to talk, like infographics, what's that? And she says, I get it, informational graphics. And the boy she's with says, hey, that sounds like fun. And so then what I do on this page is I show the basic charts and graphs that I cover within the book. And those include bar graphs. Bar graphs are great for comparing things to one another so that you know what's the most popular, the least popular, what there are more of, what there are fewer of. Pie charts, which shows you the part of 100, the part of 100% that has been selected, or that something is, like whether it's the number of people who sign up for different sports, or the number of people who like certain things. Line graphs are really important because line graphs cover data that changes over time. Say, for example, like the weather, it's always changing. It's always changing. It's hot at one point, cool at another point, in between. How much money you've got, that changes over time. A lot of things do. Trends to change over time. And so line graphs kind of show you that movement. And then finally, pictographs, which are great fun because they show data in the context of pictures. And so kids really like to work with pictures and show that data that way. So in this book, I've covered examples of how we build those different graphs.
Well, what are some of the benefits of learning about charts and graphs for children?
Well, you know, charts and graphs are really important in the educational process, and they're also fun, by the way. A lot of fun because they help you explain information to other people. And so one aspect of it is that they show you how to use math in real life situations. You collect the data, and so you've got the data, you know it's real, you know it's absolutely real, and then you're able to use your math skills to present it to others. And so it's real applied mathematics. You know, it's no longer when am I going to use that question that often comes up in math education. It's rather, here's a way that I can use that. Here's a way that I do use it to explain ideas to other people. And there's a social aspect to it too. You may not think of math as being social, but just think if you were to take a poll of your family of favorite vacation spots or something like that, and you got your whole family involved in it, and then you were able to keep track of that data, and then you were able to share it with them. There's that positive social aspect. Or if you're part of a club or your class in school or something, you might be on a team and work with others to collect data, and so that helps you learn from one another, and so that's a social aspect of it. And so I think those are great benefits of it. And it's even applicable to kids in pre-K. And some people say, wait a minute, charts and graphs at pre-K? And I say, sure, because you can use tangible objects like coins or buttons or books or blocks or Unifix cubes, and you can show that each one is a value of 1, so you've got one-to-one correspondence, and you can say, okay, you've got 3 blocks, and that means 3 people preferred this, and only 1 block, and that means only 1 person preferred that, and suddenly you're physically building a graph of information that you've collected. So there are many, many benefits that come from charts and graphs and the application of those to real life situations.
Well, those seem like wonderful opportunities for children, Stuart. Now I can't wait to see the book. Can you show us a few of the charts and graphs?
Yeah, I've been kind of waiting to show the inside of the book too to you all, and I think that that's really important. And I think what I'll do is I'm going to start with showing you an example of a pictograph, because we talked about how much fun they are. And so what happened here is that in this pictograph, the members of the science club wanted to know which are the most common household pets in their school. And so they went through recent statistics in the whole United States, and they found out that fish are at the top of the list because people usually have more than one fish. When you have one, you usually have plenty of them. And after fish, the 4 most common pets are cats, dogs, birds, and hamsters, or other small animals. So what happened is that we collected the data about those. And so we've got those pets listed here. We've got birds, cats, dogs, fish, and hamsters. We've got pictures of them. So there are these cute little pictures of them right there. And then we found out that in our class, in the people that we polled, there were 10 families that had birds. There were 45 that had cats. There were 40 that had dogs. Dogs and cats are usually pretty similar back and forth to one another. 60 that had fish, and 25 that had hamsters. And so you've got that information, you've got that data, and then what are you going to do with it? Well, I think the thing to do with it is to turn that into a pictograph. And so there are simple diagrams of those same animals. And because we have some that are 5s, each of these are equal to 10, because we've got some pretty big numbers here. And so each of these represent 10. And because there are some 5s, we have to have half of the animal. And so you can tell right away here that there's 10 birds. There are 10, 20, 30, 40, 5 cats, 10, 20, 30, 40 dogs, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 fish, and look at this, 10, 25 hamsters. And then what we did was we decided to make an infographic out of it. Decorate it, make it fun, give it a great title like Pets Galore. And titles are really important in graphs because they tell you what it's about. They tell you what you're keeping track of. We're keeping track of pets here. And made a colorful display for you to share that information with the world. So that is a good example of a pictograph. And I'd also like to show you a line graph. Now line graphs are a little more complicated because I told you what happens in line graphs is that they are a kind of a example of something happening over time, something that changes, fluctuates, that changes over time. And so These kids are taking a trip. They're going on a trip to visit some other people, and then the back seat of the car, and you know how that goes. You know, you kind of get bored. And what they decided to do was to keep track of how far they went in each hour of the trip. And so so what they did was from 8 to 9, they realized that they had gone a total of 40 miles. And of course that changes because you don't go 40 miles an hour steadily, sometimes slower, sometimes faster, but they totaled at the end of that, or went an average of 40 miles. And then in the next hour, they went 60 miles. And so that's how many miles they went altogether, 100. In the next hour, they went 40 miles again, so they were going a little more slowly, and now 140 miles. From 11 to 12, they went 60 miles, and so that became a total of 200. And then they went 0 miles from 12 to 1. And they went 0 miles because they stopped for lunch. But time was still going by, and so now they're up to 200. Now they're up to a total of 200 miles. They didn't go any further, so it's the same as the one above. From 1 to 2, they went another 50 miles, and now 250. 2 to 3, 70 miles. Boy, they were really going fast then. And they got all the way up to 320 miles. And then for the last little bit of their trip, they probably were not on the highway anymore, they went 30 miles. And their entire trip was 350 miles. And so then they took that data, and again what they did was they created a graph out of it. But this time it was a line graph. And a line graph has 2 axes on it. And this axis is called the y-axis, and it goes up from 0, and it's the numbers of miles traveled as it's labeled here. So it goes 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, and 350. And across the bottom, which is called the x-axis, is the time, the intervals of time. And so the intervals of time is spread along the bottom like that. And so at any given point, you can take a pinpoint and say, okay, they went 40 miles just under the 50 in that hour. And they trace the information from the data before this. And you can see what happened at lunchtime. It went flat because the time was going by, but the miles were not. They were still. And you can see sometimes this is steeper because they're going faster, and sometimes it's less steep because they're going slower. And then they took that information, our trip, time and distance, and they gave it a clever name, On the Road Again. And then what they did was made a great little infographic that shows some of the things they saw along the way, a little car making the ride, and lots of color and lots of information to see.
Well, what about the other 2 types, circle graphs or pie charts and bar graphs?
Well, yes, I'd be happy to show you about those also. So let's start with a circle graph. And a circle graph is, the entire circle is 100%. And so when the entire circle is 100%, and so what happens is that there are different percentages along the way. And so in this particular case, what happened was that there were 100 kids signed up for a town athletic program, 100 kids. And the program director asked everyone to select one of 4 sports. So you could only select one of those 4 sports, the one that you wanted to do the most. And the choices were basketball, swimming, soccer, and track. And then they found out over here what the numbers would be. And the girl says here, she says, soccer all the way. And he says, that's a lot of kids and that's a lot of kids and a whole lot of fun. But you can see what happened. 40 of the kids signed up for soccer. So that's 40 over 100, or 40%, part of 100. And so in track, 30 signed up, 30 over 100, or 30%. In basketball, there were 20 who signed up, 20 over 100, or 20%. And finally, swimming, there were 10 that signed up, 10 over 100, or 10%. And so you can see that that's all 100 kids, so that's the total. And so that's 100 over 100, or 100% of the kids who participated in responding to that question. And then what they did was they turned it into a great little circle graph where each of these showed 10, 20, 30, 40. So there's the 40 who preferred soccer, 10, 20, 30, the 30 who preferred track, the 20 who preferred basketball, and the 10 who preferred swimming. And you could see right there what's the most popular. what was the least popular. And then once again, we gave it a clever title, All About Sports, decorated it up, showed some of the shirts and some of the equipment, and made sure that you knew all about it and could have fun with it. And so that's an example of a circle graph. And then guess what? I've got one more. Lisa asked about also that I explain about something about bar graphs, because that's the fourth type of graph that is included in this book. And so let me try this one on you and see how you like it. Let's see if I can find it quickly. Here it is, way down here. These were favorite meals, and who doesn't want to know what favorite meals are? And so these kids kind of figured out, okay, these 6 are kind of the favorite meals in our group of friends. Mac and cheese, pizza, chicken and rice, salad bar, burritos, or hamburgers and fries. And they wanted to know, of those, which were the most popular. And so they asked all these kids, you can only vote once. He says dogs don't count, so you couldn't ask the dog what they wanted. And so here are the totals that they got. They collected the data, and they arranged them in little bundles of 5, tallies. Many of you know what tally marks are all about. They make it easier to count. And so you can see that 5, 10 preferred mac and cheese, 5, 10, 15, 20, 1 preferred pizza. As far as chicken and rice is concerned, it's 5, 10, 15. Salad bars were 5, 6, 7, 8. Burritos were 5, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18. And finally, hamburger and fries were 5, 10, 11, 12, 13. So they got the data. That's the data they collected. They know it's real, and it's very exciting information for them to have. And what happens is that they put them into a very simple bar graph. Up the side, starting with 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And you can see that pizza goes all the way up here to 21. And you can see that salad bar is way down here instead. And so they took those 6 meals and they created this bar graph, and then they gave it a great title, Best Meals Ever, jazzed it up with lots of colors, cut out pictures of each of the meals and made the bars out of those pictures. And you have an infographic that shows you instantly that of this group of meals, that pizza's the favorite, salad bar is the least favorite, and right after pizza comes, you've got it, burritos. And you can see that information clearly, and it's lots of fun. So those are examples in the book of the 4 different graphs that I created. There are others in the book too, but I think that gives you a fairly good summary of the kinds of things that I've been working with.
Well, those were fun, Stuart. But I was wondering, do all the graphs have similar parts?
Well, you know, they do. They have similar parts because they're really important for you to think about. They have an x-axis, and an x-axis goes across the bottom, and they have a y-axis, and the y-axis goes up the side. And they have the data, of course, that you're going to collect, and they all have an informational title. And those are essential parts. I have intervals of information along the bottom or down the side, so that you have exact intervals so that you can make a very quick assessment, a visual assessment of the information that's being presented.
Well, what about the way you presented them in show and tell? Is there a pattern?
Well, what I wanted to do, and what I think is really important, is to show what data is, and then how do you collect it? How do you get the data of information? By taking polls or talking to other people or whatever it is that you need to do to collect the data on what you're trying to find. And then how do you organize it and arrange it in a truthful, interesting manner that expresses what that data is mathematically, and then create an infographic. So in each of the examples within my book, Show and Tell, what I've done is I've gone through those steps. What is data? How do you collect it? How do you organize it? And then how do you make it dynamic for other people to understand it?
Well, how easy is it to create your own graphs?
Well, you know, it's pretty easy. I think we should try a couple. I think that because I think that parents and teachers could easily do that, and so I think that you know, you could collect data. First of all, there's any number of things you could collect data about and have fun with. You could collect data about children wearing blue and red or neither. How many people are wearing blue, how many people are wearing red, and how many people are wearing neither in your classroom. How many people are wearing glasses or not wearing glasses. How many people, we've already done food preferences and ideas about preferences with sports. We've already done a road trip. You could do a bicycle trip. You could do a run, and any kind of thing that you're participating in. So there are just lots of different examples. They're all around you every day, examples of things that you could create, collect data about and create graphs on. Somebody suggested to me even that there are many early childhood classes that plant a seed and keep track of how that seedling grows and grows into a plant. And wouldn't that be fun to do a graph about it? It would make that information really dynamic because you could be able to see it, and it would be great. And so I think what I'd like to do is just to show you how easy and quick it is to be able to do this. And so what I've done is I've got a couple of examples I wrote down so that I could do this quickly for you in this video today. And those examples include, let's start with a pie chart or a circle graph, whichever you prefer to call it. And what happened was that we decided to take a poll of 200 people, so quite a lot of people. And so it was a poll of 200 because these 200 were all a part of the same camp group, a summer camp group. And they were given the choice of 5 different places that they could go to for a field trip. So they all had to vote, and one was going to win, and that's where they're going to go. And so they took, I'm just going to write down the label for it. They took the police station, and that was one. And then they took, I think I should write that out a little bit so that you can remember it, the police station. And then the next choice for them was going to the library. The library could be lots of fun because you could get involved in the stacks and talking to the librarian and the film area and the children's book area, etc. A dairy farm, which I think would be a lot of fun because then on a dairy farm you'd be able to see all the cows and everything and the equipment and talk to the farmer and see how that happens, where milk comes from and cheeses, etc. The fire station, and the fire station is great because of course there are the sirens and the fire trucks and the other things that go on within a fire station. And then finally a museum. A museum would be great because there are all kinds of museums. There are museums of art and museums of history and local museums where you find out more about your town. And so I think those were the 5 choices. And so then what they did was, I'll change my color here so that you can see this information just a little more clearly. I already told you that they talked to a total of 200 people, and they found out that in that group of 200 people that the police station, 40 wanted to go there. So let's see, I didn't make room for it, but I'll put it right underneath it there. So 40 people wanted to go to the police station. The library had 20 of the campers wanted to go to the library. The dairy farm was a total of 50 people. Boy, that was popular. A total of 50 people out of the 200 wanted to go to the dairy farm. And then there's the fire station. 60 people picked the fire station. And then finally the museum, and the museum, 30 people picked the museum. Now, I used even numbers today, but obviously it could be any number at all. This could be 52, and that could be 21, and this could be 15. And so you can do it with all kinds of numbers depending on who votes. I thought it was best to go with even numbers today because we're trying to move kind of quickly through this video and give you an example. Now, if I were going to be making a circle graph of that, what I would do is make, guess what? A great big circle. And so there's my big circle. And then this would be the starting point. Usually when you're working with a circle graph, you start right at the middle of the top. And so if we have a total of 200 people, then what would happen would be 100 be down here, because this would be obviously half. And so this would be 50 people, and this would obviously be a quarter. And then over here would be 150. And at the top, when you got all the way over here, would be the total of 200. And so if we put this in the order of size, organized our data in the order of size, and again, I'm going to just have fun and amuse myself by changing colors, what would happen would be that we remembered that of the largest vote was for the fire station, and there were 60 people, so just a little bit over this. So you go to the middle, and you create a wedge, and that would be the number of people that wanted to go to the fire station. And then the next largest was the dairy farm, and there were, in the dairy farm, what happened was that there were 50 people, and so that would be a shape like that, 50 people, but we're already into this over here, so we've got to make it come over here like that. And so that would be the dairy farm. Then the next one was the police station, and there were 40, and so that would be under the 50, and so we've already into this by 10, and so that would be right here, and so that would be the police station. The next largest was the, let's see, the museum, of which there were 30, and so that's a little over half of that section, and so that's the museum. And then finally the library, and the library was the last 20%. And so therefore you have your 60%, and then you have, or 60 people, it's not, I'm sorry, you have your, the number of people who voted for it were 60, because the total is 200, and so you go all the way down here, and then you come all the way over here to the dairy farm, and you have 50, and you come all the way up here, you've got 150 total now, which is the police station, and then the museum and the library. Now this whole thing is 100% of the 200, it's the whole 200. And so, and because it's 200 people, this wedge right over here, this wedge, which is the one that was the preferred group, is really 30% of the total. And so it's 60 here because it's 200, but it's 30% of the total. And so that's a good example of creating a pie chart. And so we have to give it a nifty name. Remember I told you it needs a title, so we call it Field Trip, I guess. And you might come up with something funnier than Field Trip, I'm sure you would. But you might call it Field Trip, and then you have the preferences and all that information. And so that's an example of building a circle graph right before your eyes, really quickly, really easily, collecting the data and doing it. And I kind of like to do a bar graph too, because I think that that's an important one to see, and bar graphs are used a lot because they do show you information that is compared one to the other. And so I'm going to take the example. I made up an example that we're going to have a big picnic, and there's going to be a fruit stand. And so there's going to be a fruit stand so people can pick out different fruit. And we want to know which are the 2 or 3 most popular so we have the right fruits there for people. And so we picked out pears as a very popular fruit. And we did apples, and lots of people like apples. And we did bananas. We picked peaches, and plums. Okay, so there are fruits that we could easily have available at the picnic. And then what we did was again, you know what the story is, we took a poll. We tried to find out how many people wanted each of these different fruits, and we found out that 13 voted for pears, 32 voted for apples, 20 voted for bananas, 26 voted for peaches, and 9 voted for plums. So I guess plums were the least popular, but the least popular of this group of 5. I like plums, especially big juicy ones. And so then, let's see, no number goes just a little over 30, so it goes up, nothing goes over 40. So what I would tend to do then is to make a big L, and I'd start down here at 0 as you want to, because you want to keep control and careful intervals of this chart. And we'd go up do you remember what we called it? Y-axis, and we'd go 10, 20, 30, 40. Nothing went over 40. And then what we do along the bottom is we would do pears. And I better write these sideways because they're going to be too long. Apples. And we did bananas. We did peaches. And plums. I better put an S on those peaches over there. There. And then what happened was we found out that, remember our data now, we found out that there were 13 people, so 10, 11, 12, 13, right about here, 13 people that preferred pears, so there's my bar for pears. For apples, let's see, it was a big number, there were 32, apples went all the way up to here, 32, 32 people preferred apples. Then, let's see, what was the next one? Bananas, 20. So that's easy because it's right on that number. We can find it really fast. Bananas. And we then did, let's see, peaches went to 26. So that's a little over halfway up here, between the 20 and the 30. 26. And finally, plums were 9. And so just before the 10, I'm going to go way over here. And so those are the number 9. Plums. Well, you can tell just by looking at that graphic display of the information that I think if I were running the fruit stand, I would make sure that these 3 fruits were there. I can make a decision based on that graph. And so we'd have apples, bananas, and peaches. And just for fun, we might give it a funny name and therefore might even call the fruit stand Tutti Frutti. So Tutti Frutti. And there you have an example of a bar graph, again created right before your very eyes.
Stuart, how do you anticipate that this book will be used?
Well, you know, I think the book is going to be used by librarians who often do group kinds of things and have many resources. Certainly by teachers. Teachers will be able to use this very, very well in their classrooms or as special assignments. Parents who want their kids to be better at math, and of course everybody does, can use it at home because, as I already pointed out, you can do just about anything. You can collect data about just about anything. I even in my book have the kids collect data on a family burping contest. Who burped the most in a week? You can do things about favorite foods, colors, furniture, places to go on vacation, as I've already mentioned. And so I think it'll be used by parents and other caregivers. And I'm also hoping and believe that kids will use it too, that kids will be using it a lot as they work in teams of people or groups of people or want to make a point about something and learn that you can do that most quickly when you're using it as showing it as a graph rather than just saying it or writing it down.
Well, have we covered everything?
You know, we've sure covered a lot. I hope you're all still with me. Thank you very much for being here. And I think indeed we've covered most of what I would like to say about show and tell. I mean, the real thing is that I want to say, the real thing I want to convey is that in this book that I have right here somewhere, here it is. In this book, I want to show you how charts and graphs and diagrams are created and how useful they are, the benefits that come with them, and the foundational skills that are here. And I also want to make sure that you know that creating this kind of display can be lots of fun as you turn them into wonderful infographics to share with others.
Thank you, Stuart. I wish you the best and the greatest success with show and tell.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for being my interviewer, and thank you, Nancy, for being my videographer, and I hope you all enjoyed this presentation.